Meanwhile, the president's legal troubles still creating a cloud over the White House. You may have noticed, if you've seen the president's Twitter, 9 tweets so far this weekend about Mueller, the FBI, or the DOJ. Here's what's gone down in the last few days that might be getting under the president's skin. A lobbyist with ties to Ukrainian and Russian oligarchs has pleaded guilty and agreed to cooperate with Robert Mueller. His name is Sam Patten, and he admits that he funneled foreign money into Trump's inaugural committee. We've also learned more about another plea deal, the one with George Papadopoulos. According to court documents, Papadopoulos told investigators that both Trump and Attorney General Jeff Sessions supported the idea of a meeting between then-candidate Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin during the 2016 campaign. It's unclear how all of this factors into Robert Mueller's investigation because we don't yet know what his conclusions are. We don't have a final report. With us to discuss, associate editor and columnist for Real Clear Politics, A.B. Stoddard, and host of Law and Crime and former prosecutor Robert Bianchi. So, guys, while the nation was mourning Senator John McCain this weekend, the president was airing these grievances on Twitter about the DOJ and the FBI, and this comes as some new polling shows support for Mueller's investigation has climbed up to 63%. A.B., does this indicate the president's attempts to discredit the probe aren't working?
I think the rising approval for Bob Mueller is really telling. Fox News had a poll where he was up 11 points just since last month. And then the new poll that you cited with him over 60% approval. I think it really comes from not only his last indictments, but obviously from the Manafort trial, where you had, 11 people basically admit that they believed that Paul Manafort was guilty on 18 counts, and with one holdout, they could only proceed with 8 guilty counts. But it was another show that the Mueller investigation is not a witch hunt, and that people are not falling for the president's attempts to discredit him. The president wants to keep talking about him because now Mueller goes into what we assume is going to be a dark period. No subpoenaing the president, no indictments, no nothing, because we're looking at Labor Day weekend in an 8-week stretch to November 6th, the midterm elections. And I think the recent findings from Friday also show that we don't know where this sprawling investigation is going to go or end up, and I think it's going to go well into 2019.
I want to talk about one of those developments on Friday. The Mueller investigation, you'll recall now, has resulted in nearly 200 criminal charges, and this week the new plea deal, bringing the total to 6, with Sam Patten admitting to helping to funnel that illegal foreign money into the president's inaugural event. Bob, is that evidence of collusion?
The bigger piece of the evidence is, remember that he was working for, this is Patten, Cambridge Analytica in 2014, formed a company with pro-Russian, pro-Ukrainian ties to it, left, was alleged to be working with Russian spies during the time period that they were trying to figure out how are they able to target certain voters, how are the Russians who are trolling the American electoral process, and Patten could very well be that piece. Add to the last data point, Anna, is Papadopoulos' statement is very key. He's saying, yeah, President Trump nodded his head in affirmation about meeting the Russians, and Jeff Sessions had indicated, yes, let's see about that, let's look into that. Is it possible Jeff Sessions could be under investigation as well? Because if true, they're soliciting foreign nationals to support a campaign. So all these data points are all over by Russia, Russia, Russia. Hey, Russia, if you're listening, we're looking for those 30,000 emails. Pro-change of the RNC platform, only one plank, a pro-Russian Ukraine stance. You have constant Russians involved in now. This guy, Patten, who's now spending $50,000 of illegal money in order to be in inauguration. We don't know the whole investigative file. I'm a prosecutor. I've done this and watched the media comment on my case, and you only know a piece of it because they're court proceedings and you have to. But it's a lot of data points, Anna.
But there is still nothing implicating President Trump directly.
Well, listen, I've said this before. Whether I'm a lawyer, I'm a legal analyst. I'm just telling you as a prosecutor, when you're seeing these gyrations, you're like, something odd is happening. And nothing says that he specifically knew about the Trump Tower meeting, which is more Russians. I have a whole list here I won't bore your audience with, but you can go on and on and on.
When you think about the entirety there, that's what paints the picture that fuels the ongoing investigation and makes us all pause and say, let's just wait and see what the conclusion ends up being. On top of the plea deal, George Papadopoulos also filed documents that contradict Jeff Sessions' testimony before Congress. As Robert pointed out, it says Sessions was actually amenable to a meeting between then candidate Trump and Vladimir Putin. AB, does this increase now the likelihood that Trump is going to fire Sessions?
This is such an interesting drama. Obviously, we've been listening to President Trump dump all over his attorney general for well over a year. It started in March of 2017. He made it very clear in July of 2017 that he couldn't forgive him from recusing himself from the investigation because he thought the attorney general was there to protect him from such an investigation. He has made it clear through that Bloomberg interview a few days ago that he has sort of acceded to congressional Republicans fighting to hold their majorities in the Congress and the Senate, that he's going to wait until after the midterms. But they've basically telegraphed that he's going to lose his job on November 7th. That's very clear. And the pressure will build in the midterm campaign from Democrats telling voters, look, Sessions is going to get dumped. This is an indication the president wants to put someone in there who can restrain, limit, confine, maybe end, thwart at least the Mueller probe. And that, I think, is a terrible political talking point for the Republicans. I think Jeff Sessions is likely to survive until the election because the Republicans have begged the president to hold off. But I still think the fact that we know he's going to lose his job in 8 weeks is really a political problem for Republicans and President Trump.
And in that same Bloomberg interview, Trump also called the Mueller investigation illegal. Bob, is that his best defense?
Yeah, that's not illegal. And this is the definition of obstruction, when you're trying to impede or influence the outcome of an investigation. When I was nominated by the governor with the advice and consent of the Senate, I was in a black box. I couldn't be fired. I could only be impeached, removed for cause. How they don't have this in order to stop the president from pressuring when he's under investigation, well, it's another data point that shows obstruction in my mind. With all due respect to the president, maybe he doesn't get it. Maybe he doesn't care to get it. It is not right, and if you've done nothing wrong, then you shouldn't be concerned of what the outcome of that investigation is. But moving out Sessions sends a message to everyone underneath him. You're all in jeopardy if you dare to continue to challenge this investigation doesn't end, your career ends. And we've seen that, Ana, and that's bad for justice, because I wish the little guy could get even just a break every now and again by having prosecutors look at their cases. To actually remove a prosecutor, remove U.S. attorneys, remove assistant United States attorneys because you don't like the way an investigation is going, the rule of law has been obliterated if that happens.
It sends a chilling message. Josh Campbell, who is a former FBI supervisory special agent, wrote in an op-ed today, quote, "Lost in the president's relentless campaign to undermine our institutions of justice is the realization that Trump and his enablers are actually making it harder to hold agencies like DOJ and the FBI accountable when they do in fact make mistakes. Trump is constantly crying wolf, and it is to the detriment of good governance." That's a quote. Amy, do you agree?
I do. I mean, at some point, people began to tune out President Trump. If they didn't, we wouldn't see such high numbers for the Mueller probe and the conduct with which Robert Mueller has conducted himself as special counsel. People are really blowing off what President Trump says, and Josh is right. How do you actually get at real problems and solve them if he's already just been on this campaign to sort of undermine the DOJ and the FBI that people kind of blow off as just his attempt to gaslight us? I do think congressional Republicans need to listen, though, to what President Trump is telling them. He is telling them he's going to interfere with the Mueller probe. He's telling them he's going to fire Jeff Sessions. He's telling them that he, just like he said at a rally a few nights ago, he's going to have to get involved. They're making sure that they're not listening, and I think they're going to pay a price for that.
Amy Stoddard, Robert Bianchi, thank you both. Good to have you with us.